Hello, and welcome to Michell Consulting's webinar series for our Michell University. Today, we're going to be working with SAP Business One, and we're going to talk about a new enhancement for the recurring transactions. For purposes of the demo today, we're using SAP Business One version 8.82. And one of the enhancements that came out of this is a way to actually create recurring transactions for different types of marketing documents. As we know from working with SAP, there was recurring transactions within the general ledger, which created journal entries. So for example, if we look at the SAP and we go to recurring transactions, we can see that we have the ability of creating a recurring transaction that would be used in general ledger. Now, there's some advantages and disadvantages of this. The advantages is for recurring transactions, bills that happen on maybe a monthly or weekly or biweekly basis, like rent and so on. This was a way to actually set it up so we can generate a recurring transaction to post to either a general ledger for, say, depreciation schedules or for a vendor. So if we want to, say, put a rent or utility bill against a vendor, we can do it here. And as we know before, we could have created a code. So we're going to create a test code here. Again, we can give a description. Let's just say rent. We can go here and we can do a control tab. Remember, we can select our business partner. So in this case, we're going to credit the vendor $1,000, and we're going to pick our offsetting account. And you can see here, and we can set this frequency. Again, we can do daily, weekly, monthly, etc. We can do it on the day of the month. So if we would select, in this case, monthly, it was going to start on the 3rd of the month. And we can set this next execution. Let's just kind of see what our date is. Let's make our next execution here. And so on. And remember this was the standard way of doing it. Again, we're just getting this message because we changed the date. We already have that name, so it's going to change the name here. And again, we could do this. This is nice because what it allows us to do is actually do recurring postings. We can actually then run an execution to see what recurring postings we would have. And this would actually post to general ledger and to the business partner. So what it would do is it would actually create a transaction and put it in against the business partner. Now, the advantage of that is that it was in the aging, so it could be paid. But one of the disadvantages of that, it always showed up as a journal entry. So it's consistent. Let's just do a journal entry so you can see. We won't run that, but we'll do the same principle here. So we're going to go in here and we're going to select Far East Computers. We're going to credit this account $1,000, and we're going to go select our utility account. We're going to debit that. And we're going to add this transaction. And we saw before that now this is going to become part of the aging. So if we open up the vendor, we can see here on the account balance what the vendor has here. And we can see the transactions as journal entries. You can see here that we have this journal entry. And again, this was good because this showed up in the account. This allowed us to pay it. If we were to go into this business partner for payments, we'd be able to pay it. The only thing that it would show as a journal entry, so it was kind of confusing that when you went into, let's say, banking and outgoing payments, and we selected our vendor, Far East, you can see down here for the documents, it would show here as a journal entry. So again, it was still a document. It was still a journal entry. Remember, SAP, when we do journal entries, we can do them to both business partners and or GL accounts. So this got it into the system. So in this case, my utility bill was in the system. But it was kind of confusing for people because it would show as a journal entry. It wouldn't show as, say, an AP invoice. So what SAP did in their new version, they allowed us to create the same type of templates using any document. So let's take a look at that. Again, for purposes here, we're going to do it from the accounts payable. We'll just create an AP invoice, but you can see that it is available here in sales and AR. You have it here as well as in accounts payable. Let's go to accounts payable, and we're going to go to the recurring transaction template. You can see here I created one, so we can see the different types of templates. We can filter. So what we can do now is we can create a recurring template on all these types of documents. So we can do it for quotes, for orders, and so on. We can do it from all the sales and AR marketing documents, as well as the purchasing and AP marketing documents, and we can even do it here on inventory, which is a nice feature. So if you want to have multiple locations and you want to set up maybe transfers on a monthly basis, you can actually set your transfers and your transfer request directly from here. So let's look at one. Let's create one here. We have this test one. Let's just do another one. So we're going to go here and we're going to give this template a name. So we're just going to call this, let's call this utils. Okay, let's select our type. So you can see here we're going to select in this case an AP invoice. Here we have our document number. So if we tab into this, we can see the ones that we currently have set up. So these are all my recurrings that I have set up as AP invoices. Again, I can select one of these to modify it, or I can just do new. So let's do new. And again, what's happening is it opens up the AP invoice marketing document. So here we can actually go in and we can set this up. Let's go in here and let's choose a vendor. Again, we're going to pick Far East again. We're going to put an invoice number if we want. Let's just call this util again. We can set the posting date. Let's set this to say 01/01/12. Again, we can setting our due dates is coming from actually the vendor information, so we have it set up this way. And here we can select our GL account. So again, we're doing the same thing that we would normally do in the older version of SAP Business One, thing with the template, and it's going to create the template as an AP invoice. So we'll see it actually as AP versus a general ledger. We can have this amount. Just take the tax off because we're charging tax. Let's go find our tax code field. Let's make it visible and active. Let's just make an example. Just want to make a nice clean 15. So here we're creating the AP invoice. You can see it's $277, and we're doing it for $15,000. We're just going to go ahead and add this. And now we can see here it's $277. We can determine, again, how we want to do this. We want to do it daily, weekly, and so on. So we're going to do it monthly. I'm going to do it on the first of the month. And let's set this, again, we're going to put our start date for January 1st. I have my system date in January of 2012, so we can do that. We can also put the valid until date. For example, if we want this to go for a certain amount of time, maybe a year or 6 months, we can actually go ahead and put the valid until date. At that point, it'll actually stop. It won't allow you to execute. Or if you leave this date blank, it's going to basically continue on. So let's update that. Again, we're just getting that message because we backdated it here. So we have our templates now set up. So now we want to do, and we can set this to automatically execute when we log in. So if we go here to administration, under the system initialization, under general settings for services, we can do that. So you can see here, I can set this, display recurring postings on execution, okay, display recurring transactions on execution, and so on. So you can set this alert, so when I do log in, these will come up. So if I have this set for the first of the month, and I happen to come in on the first of, let's say, March 1st, and I log in, I will get the automatic pop-up of the window for this information. So if you want to have we recommend if you do have recurring transactions, you have this open up, so when you do log in, they'll actually show up. Right? So you can set that under your general settings for it to automatically pop up. So what's going to happen is when I log in and they're due, I'm going to get this is going to pop up automatically. So you can see this came up, the confirmation of recurring, and you can see we have a few in here. Okay, again, we have the utility one that we just did. We have these here, so we actually have two for utilities because we set it to start on January 1. So what it's going to do, it's going to generate that one and the one for February because I'm have my computer date set in February, so I need to catch up and do the ones for each one. So you can see I can do that. Again, very simple. I can select the ones I want. So let's just do this one here. Let's do both of those. And you can see, actually we'll even do this, might as well just, well, we'll just do two for now. We can do another one. And you can see we can set the alerts, specify the system response to missing data. So what you can do is you can just continue on. So if there's any problems with the data, it won't create that transaction. It'll just go to the next one. You can skip to the next transactions automatically, okay? Or you can request user confirmation. So it's going to stop and tell you if there's any information. You can see the total transactions being executed. And again, if you want to filter here, we just all happen to have AP invoices, but you can filter through here. Take a look at it. If you see something wrong with maybe these amounts or these dates, again, you can open up the templates, and you can see the templates here. We're just going to go ahead and execute this. So we're going to create two AP invoices for these two for Far East computers. Make that a little bigger so we can see. And we're going to go ahead and execute. Okay, so we can see that we created two AP invoices were generated, AP invoice 277 and 278. So if we open them up, we can see here we have 277. There's the posting date. There's the amount. We can look here, and we can see this one here. So now they're actually in the vendor. So if we open up the vendors, and we go to the vendor aging, again, we can see here the 15th. You can see here 277 is right here, as well as the other one. So now they show up. If you see here, they don't show up as a journal entry. You can see that this is a journal entry, so it shows up now. So this way, when we now go to actually make the payment, we can see that as an AP invoice. So let's look at that real quick. And you can see here that we have these two that we didn't execute. So again, now if we look in banking, and if we look at outgoing payments, and we call up Far East, again, we can see now the document types are AP invoices. You can see. And again, you can see the invoice number that was created and all the information. So this is a nice functionality. That's something new in SAP, which our clients really like because of that. So now you can create those setups and you can do all the stuff. Again, you were limited in the older versions of SAP. You had the functionality, but you only had it from the journal entry or general ledger concept here. So the thing is, when you create it through here, you only saw it as a journal entry. So in this case, you have the same thing. So you can see the one we did here. We're still going to credit the vendor, or we can debit the customer, so we can see it in the aging, as well as the information here. But again, this was a journal entry. So these journal entries were, that's the ones we just created, these were journal entries. You can see here the one we did, it was always a journal entry. So it wasn't the actual document. Now what's happening is they're the actual documents. So you can see here that this is linked to the AP invoice. Okay, so let's do a little recap of that. Remember, what we have now is that we can now go into either from all our marketing documents, we can go into the recurring transaction template. Let's just go ahead and drop it in a common function so we can see it here. We have it in sales and AR. We have it in purchasing. And we have it in the inventory management. So again, if we open this up right here, I just added it to my common functions in my cockpit. Okay? Makes it just easier for me to get to. So you can see what we have. So again, you can create these on either one. All we have to do is give the template a name. Let's say we want to do a recurring sales order. We can do that. Again, we can select the sales order. We can actually choose an existing document. In this case, we don't have any. We only have AP invoices. So we're going to define new. It's going to automatically open up the sales order. Again, you can see that it's the sales order template here. It's creating a template. So we can do the same thing. We can just go here and let's say we're going to create Earthshaker. And again, we can say 01/01/12. There's our dates. And again, we can do it from a service side invoice like we saw in the accounts payable. Well, because this is a sales order, let's say this client, for whatever reason, wants to get an order. So we're going to create an order for these 3 items. We're just going to run that. Again, it saves me that. We can see all the information coming from the business partner. You can see the quantity. You can see his pricing. You can see these are in blue because this customer has some special pricing. We're going to add that. Okay. And you can see now we have it. Again, we can determine when we're going to run it. We want to do it daily, weekly, monthly. We're going to do it quarterly, semi-annual, annual, and you just create it for a one-time transaction. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put 01/01/12. And we can have this valid until a certain time. So again, very simple. We're going to update that. Just getting this message saying that we kind of went to an earlier date. We're going to accept that. And now it's in the recurring transactions. So if you look here, you can see now that we have the sales order. Right? You can see that these were already executed. You can see that's why they're highlighted like that. So we'll do the same thing. So I'm going to go to sales and AR. We're going to go to our recurring transactions. Again, we're going to open up the template, and we're going to see here. Let's just create the one. Again, so we're going to see this here. We're going to execute. And the posting date differs, again, just because of that. Gives us a little message. So you can see sales order 320 was created successfully. And you no longer see it here in the confirmation list because we've already ran it. So we open up sales orders. And if we go to our last sales order, which was 320, there we go. So again, really nice functionality. I really like this in SAP because it allows me a lot of flexibility. Again, the recurring transactions from the general ledger had a purpose. They were very good for things like depreciation schedules and so on, things that were just related to general ledger. But when you got into creating transactions related to customers or vendors like rent, utilities, and that kind of stuff, when you were dealing with the business partners, it made it kind of confusing. It worked. The journal entries were available in the incoming and outgoing payments, and they were available in all the agings. But again, a lot of clients didn't like it because it just looked strange getting a journal entry on a statement versus an AR invoice or an AP invoice. So now with this, we can define these templates, we can run it, and we can actually create whatever templates we want. And again, we can set that to automatically come up. You can see in administration, under the system initialization, the general settings, under services, we can have this. So what's going to happen is the minute we log in, and there are recurring transactions, by default, this window will pop open for us automatically. And again, we can take a look at this, and we can see which ones we do. And again, we have our things here. We can decide which ones we want to execute and which ones we don't. So again, we want to execute this one. We just select it. And we're executing for Acme Associates, an AP invoice. We execute. You can see that the AP invoice 279 was generated. You can also see that it's no longer on the confirmation list because we've already confirmed it by creating it. So we've created that AP invoice, and there it is. Again, really nice functionality. I like that. It lets you do a lot of stuff with that. And what I like about it, it's not only that type of information, but on your templates, you can do basically everything within SAP. So you can do it for not only the sales marketing documents and the purchase marketing documents, but you can also do it here. And what's really nice is the inventory request and transfers. You can create an inventory request, send that out, set that up monthly. Again, so when you want to move inventory between your two warehouses, it makes it a lot more efficient in SAP. Okay, so that concludes today's webinar. Again, we were using SAP Business One version 8.82, and we talked about the recurring transactions. This webinar is being recorded. This will be available on our website. You can visit us at www.michellgroup.com to watch this, as well as our other videos on SAP Business One. Once again, and we thank you for your time.